leaders stop the bull, run the country, and make everybody a part of it.
Hey guys, I'm reporting here at LaGuardia Airport in New York. Right outside the airport, I see this U.S. Customs and Border Protection car. I don't know exactly why it's here, but President Trump has said that he's hoping to deploy ICE agents to help with some of the chaos happening at TSA lines across the country. Take a listen to what some passengers here at LaGuardia had to say about that.
Sounds like a very bad idea. I'm just not really sure what ICE agents are trained to do, and certainly it's not TSA.
It's pretty unfortunate. If anything, it's going to make things worse, in my opinion. I think it's going to make things more stressful and hectic for people. And if anything, I just feel like it's just going to be like really uncomfortable for people to be here around.
It seems unnecessary, unrelated. Also, kind of seems like he's trying to push an agenda and through, a place where people are just trying to get from point A to point B.
I disagree with that. We have TSA. They shouldn't have to come in and do that. I don't agree with ICE at all anyways. They always seem like they're on like just a power trip and they just want to have control over things.
My reaction is enough is enough. ICE was not paid to come to the airports. Whatever they were paid to do, which I really don't know, let them do that, but they don't need to be here. My truth.
Going to move into American airports starting Monday?
Yes. And I'm currently working on the plan now of execution, working with the director of ICE and the administrator at TSA, the acting administrator. So we'll put together a plan today and we'll execute tomorrow.
With respect, if you're doing this in 24 hours, how well thought out could it possibly be?
Again, ICE has been at airports across the country for a long time. It's just expanding those things. Look, how much of a plan does it mean to guard an exit to make sure no one comes through that exit?
Are ICE agents even remotely trained to handle security at airports?
ICE agents receive a high level of training. And, the ICE agents are assigned at many airports across the country already. They do a lot of criminal investigation on smuggling at airports. But, certainly a highly trained ICE law enforcement officer can cover an exit, makes people.
Good morning and welcome to Black Press USA's morning show, where we bring you the headlines that uplift, impact, and inspire the Black culture. So joining me this morning, folks, is a woman who has truly done it all. She is a D1 Basketball Hall of Famer, a nationally syndicated columnist, and the editor-in-chief of the New America for Black Press USA. She's the visionary founder of the Hip Hop Union, proving that hip hop isn't just a genre, it's a political powerhouse. She spent her career bridging the gap between our culture and the halls of Congress. Family, please welcome my co-host for the morning, JINEEA Butler. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Niall. Good morning, family. And thank you to the Black Press of the USA. This is a great honor to be here with you today, kicking off Monday morning. And I'm not just a guest co-host. I'm here as an architect, a social scientist. And yes, I was a D1 player, and so let me just get into my funny mode really quick. When it's March Madness right now, like I start getting itches and swear that I'm supposed to be out on the court right now. So, I worked for Reverend Jesse Jackson for 15
And we're going to get into that. But I was excited when I found out that you were a D1 former basketball player. So Black Press family, we met at last week's Black Press 199 anniversary at Howard University. Mm-hmm. And we just happened to be sitting at the table eating, and we jumped into a conversation, and I was like, oh, you got to come co-host. But when I did my research and found that you were D1, I'm all into this March Madness. So I was like, yes.
Yeah. And so I played for Long Island University. They got their butt whipped by Arizona, the number one Arizona the other day, but we were there. So shout out to Rod Strickland, who is now the men's coach of the men's team. They made the 64 tournament brackets and they got smacked, but we're there and we have presence. Okay.
That's how I felt about Southern University. You know,
you
we
went
had
to Southern?
HB. No, I went to Grambling, but I was more so we had HBCU presence.
Right.
And that was important.
No, that's always a beautiful thing. And Howard,
that's
too.
Important.
Howard was in there for a second. You know,
yes, Howard was
won
too.
their first game in the tournament, so that was awesome too.
So we're going to jump into that a little bit later in the show. But first, let's talk about it. You know, we just lost one of the last of our civil rights icon, the Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson. And you worked with him for 15 years. With the hip hop session leading to your relationship with the Black press. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was, first of all, it was an awesome honor to work with Reverend Jackson. And then, you know, even working with him, you really don't get the fact of who he was. Like what I saw about him, I'm like, that's Reverend. Like, you know, so I worked with him for 15 years. He did conferences around the country, in Atlanta, Washington, Chicago, California, and New York. And I ran the New York market, and I did all of the hip hop sessions and all the urban sessions around the country for him, and building with him on what we should do in the hip hop community. Like, how do we rebuild ourselves? How do we revive ourselves? And that was like since 2008, our first real session, 2009. So I was able to work hands-on with him and see the great man that he was and really learn from him. But now it's our job to keep hope alive, and that's very important. And I know now, I understand what he meant by that, so it's really strong.
And so you were able to start your relationship with the Black press through Reverend Jesse Jackson. So tell us about the new American.
So the New American is under the Challenge Publisher Group. Now, what I was able to do was I was able to work with Clovis Campbell. Clovis Campbell he's the chairman of he owns the Arizona Informant. And so at the time when they came to the Rainbow Push, Clovis was the chairman. And so they brought me to the Black press to say, okay, kind of doing the same thing that I was doing with Reverend, and kind of fusing hip hop with the civil rights movement and everything like that. And so what we were able to do, we were able to connect the Black press with the hip hop community and kind of start knocking on the door of the hip hop community and letting them know how important the Black press is going into this 200 year. I'm so proud to be a part of this as well.
David, I think I said one of the last. We know Andrew Young is still here. We do, yeah. I think I said one of the last. But you know, even with that thought, you know, it is sad that those leaders and I mean, here's the thing about the civil rights movement too. To David's point, you know, beyond Andrew Young, there are a lot of unsung and unknown people who were a part of the movement. And that's one of the things that always gets lost, because I'm sure if you go to any community, especially down south, there are individuals that can speak to being a part of the civil rights movement. But when we talk, of course, about national names and things like that, of course, we do know that. And we don't know all of their names, but we do acknowledge them for what they've done. And I would love to talk to some of them to hear about how they feel about what's happening to our country now, which would be really interesting. But let's stay on the note of hip hop before we get into our stories. You ran for Congress. So talk to us about that. And I think what's interesting, people will find, is that you ran as a Republican. Why did you decide to run and what was the year? Because we want to be clear that Republicans of yesterday are not the same as today, and they're not MAGA. So talk to us about what you.
Well,
you
I'm
ran
not,
in
I'm not too
2018.
far. I
Oh,
can't say that I'm too
oh.
far into yesterday, right? So I ran 2018, but let me give you a little backstory. Again, starting from Reverend and the guidance from the whole organization, the Rainbow Push. So he had a consultant that was a political consultant. And so I'm all nosy. I'm sitting there, I'm trying to get as much information as I can. So I was talking with him, rest in peace, Frank Watkins. And so he said to me, he said, listen, JINEEA, he said, the hip hop community, because obviously I was working on the hip hop stuff. He said, you all will not be able to change your lifestyle unless you get involved politically. And this was about 2012, right? And so I'm thinking, what do you mean we can't change our lifestyle unless we get involved politically? He's like, you won't be able to do anything different with your lifestyle. You won't be able to go from 0 to 100 real quick. And I'm like, oh my God. So I started learning the political banter, right? What was going on, what was happening. And then I realized that I really couldn't do much unless I got involved, unless I became a candidate. And so my thought was, and then, look, I've been a Republican since 2000. So, and I've been a Republican because there was a man.
Are you still a Republican? Are you still a Republican
I'm still
now?
a Republican. But see, I look at it a different way. A Republican is, politics is not about following a person or things. Like, I'm a Republican because I believe in a small government. I believe in capitalism for our community, right? I believe in the economic development, pulling ourselves up from the bootstraps. Not necessarily when you think about like tea parties and things like that. That's what type of Republican that I am. I'm a hip hop Republican. Van Jones once called me a hip hop Republican at one point. But yes, because
okay.
Go ahead. Please.
Well, let me ask you this. I wanted to ask you, because you're a Republican, but how do you feel about being a Black Republican under a Trump administration? Do you agree with his policies and how he's governing this country?
Well, it's very, very hard, right? It's very hard. There are some things that I like that he does, and there's some things that I can't stand that he does. I'm sure about, like, everybody. Like, in the beginning, there was opportunity, and there was opportunity in there potentially for Black folks. Now, I'm not so sure. I see exactly where he's going with things, and I think that our community needed to shake up because we need allies on both sides of the spectrum. So when I'm in there, right, I'm like, no, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to go on. So we don't need the Black Republican that sits back and says, oh, I'm a white man too, because you have those, right? Oh, I'm following along with this white man. And I don't do that. I sit there and I make sure, and I've gone over this with Reverend as well. I said, Reverend, what is really the issue with you and the Republicans? He said nothing. He said, I just think they're not going to give you any money.
So what does Trump and this is a good question from the chat. Orange wants to know, what does Trump do that you like?
Wow. So right now, nothing. Right now, nothing. But what I like is I like us moving in the direction that it's about the economics of our community, right? And so what we had with Trump the first time around. Let me go back because I don't want you to think that I'm in right now. But what we had was the platinum plan with Trump. We had put that on the table, economic development, Black Wall Streets across the country in Black communities. Now, is that happening right now? No. And so this is what I don't like at this point. You understand what I'm saying? So it's, we go through a process of finding out exactly who people are. But again, I just believe that we need allies on both sides of the spectrum, and somebody has to be hammering in what our agenda needs to be, because they can't make up an agenda for us ever. They're never going to be able to make up an agenda that worked for us. We will
Okay.
always have to give it to them.
Okay, so are you working? I don't mean as part of like an employee, but would you be willing to work with the Trump administration, like if they invited you to the White House, or are you one of those, you said you've been a Republican since 2012, right?
2000.
And so that's a Black Republican then is different from a Black Republican now.
Right.
And so, I mean, are you trying to work with the party, or are you one of those Black Republicans, as well as white Republicans, that says, I can't do this because of what this administration is doing to people of color? Like, as a Black woman, Trump has just destroyed, Black federal workers, and Black women, are losing jobs at an all-time high. How do you reconcile that as a Black woman and a Republican to see what he's doing to our community? Like, are you in resistance, or are you like, I'm still giving them the benefit of the doubt?
No, I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm giving them hell on wheels, because, as a Black woman, I sit there and I work with a billionaire in New York, John Cassimatidis, who's very close to President Trump. And I tell him all the time, call President Trump and tell him this, that, and the third, because I think that somebody has to be in their ear. And across generations, we've always had somebody that talked to presidents, whether they liked us or not, right? So I feel like when Black women are losing their jobs, should we say, oh, well, I'm not dealing with you because you're putting us all out? No, let's get back on this table. Let's get back on this agenda. We are citizens of the United States, and we have to make sure that we are represented at every turn, even if they don't want us, even if they don't like us, because we play a serious position in this country.
So let me ask you this, because the chat is like side-eyeing platinum plan.
It's okay.
Oh shit. They ain't that chat.
That's okay.
But how do you reconcile, them being, I call them the Trump Klan administration.
Mm-hmm.
They're very racist.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you reconcile that, or how do you say somebody has to be at the table with the Klan?
What are we supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? This is my whole point, is that, again, we need allies on both sides of the spectrum. Now, can
you have a Klan ally?
No,
is it possible to have a Klan ally?
Our allies. I'm saying us as allies to each other. Black folks having allies. Now, but somebody has to be in there to push our agenda. Somebody has to be at the table doing that. Now, do I like doing it? No. But do I believe that it has to be done? Yes. I can't reconcile anything for what's going on at this point. I was at the White House for the Black History Month celebration.
No, JINEEA, no.
I was there. I was absolutely got to see what is going on. Okay, it wasn't to rah shish kumbaya. It wasn't that. I'm not kumbaya. I'm in there again to press the agenda. And if you noticed, during one of the things that I did, which I don't think that is really huge, is that President Trump didn't blackball Jesse Jackson and ball Jesse Jackson up in his comments. But that was because I spoke to my guy, John Cassimatidis, and I also reamed them out about not having Reverend Jackson at the rotunda, and so again, somebody has to be able to speak truth to power at all levels. I just believe that we shouldn't, we close the door. And I understand in our community that some people feel like we should, but I just don't. I just feel like we got to be there and we got to see what's going on, because if they're saying something in those rooms, somebody's got to turn around and sound the alarm and say, hold up, wait a minute, let me go tell my people about it. That's just how I feel about it.
Okay, let's say the chat says, Patricia Jackson is saying, you don't have to love this monster, but you can have a conversation. We have to. Lady Leo says, stop the show. Tara Matthew.
Sorry, I'm just being honest.
Orangey says the Platinum Plan is worthless as Trump's Black History program.
It was.
Dr. Mellon, she says it was. Dr. Mellon says MAGA is destroying this country. And so Lady Leo says we know what's going on in those rooms. They're not even in the room. They are at the podium saying it now. And so, yeah, I mean, there's mixed reviews. So I want to talk to you because you definitely lean into hip hop and politics. Sure. Luke Campbell is running for Congress with mixed reviews. What are your thoughts about somebody like a Luke Campbell setting up the premise of his history with the First Amendment right and him sexualizing women throughout his career?
Wow.
So
go ahead.
What are your thoughts on him running for Congress?
Well, I love it, right? And the reason why I love it is because when I originally remember what the guy had told me from the beginning, if you don't get involved politically, right, then you're not going to change your lifestyle. Now, granted, Uncle Luke was one of the first people to go to the table in reference to hip hop for freedom of speech. And I can't remember exactly what date that was, but he was one of the first people to do that. And it was about, the 2 Live Crew and, everything that they had stood for. Come on, baby, come. We was all there. So now that he's a mature man and now looks at things in a different realm. And see, hip hop is growing up. Hip hop is turning 53 years old this year. And so because of that, I love the fact that we have grown up, understand what we have to do in carrying the torch and carrying the mantelpiece from here out, because it's so important. Now, I thought that he would be getting more traction than he is, because of who he is and what he stood for and things of that nature. But people are just so unforgiving and not really understanding. But I'm glad, because back when I was running for office, I went on a show and I said, hip hop is going to take over politically. We're going to get involved politically. And there's so many people jumping out. And this is our generation and our time. And we have been the voice of our generation for so long. It's great that we're making this turn into, into Congress, into political aspects.
I love that. I mean, I love that too. I'm not sure Luke is the voice we need, but I do love the fact that, we do have people from, the hip hop culture, speaking to political issues in a serious way. I think that's important. Aquarius, the only real sign, wants to know if you voted for Trump.
Oh yeah, I did vote for Trump the first time.
Both. Oh, you didn't vote for him the second time.
The first time, and so again, because I believe that we needed a change in this country. I believe that we needed a direction. Like, everybody is sitting there going to Joe Biden. I wasn't with the whole Joe Biden, you ain't black if you not voting for me type of situation. I mean, so when we look at it like that, everybody says the lesser of two evils. I was looking to push an agenda, right? And so that's where I was. And I feel like,
but this second time around, you didn't vote for him.
I didn't, because it just, again, I didn't believe that he was going to do the agenda that we had set out. There's no platinum plan. There was nothing on the table for the Black community. It's just crazy.
Do you think that this administration is racist?
I do. Okay. I'm sad to say it. I think that,
Don't be sad. Don't be sad.
I'm
just
sad.
say it.
I'm sad.
Don't be sad.
Because
just
I'm
say
a Republican. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm sad to say it because I want to say hey, look, they're going to give us an opportunity and things like that. But opportunity clear off the table. You should see the person that they have in front of that's supposed to be leading the Black community. And again, I'm in there screaming, how can this person lead us in the Black community when they know nothing about the Black community and they know nothing about what we should be doing? This person is an event planner that they have over the Black community. So I begin to realize that, you know,
You said an event
this
plan.
ain't it. This ain't it. I was looking for something different, but this ain't it.
So Lady Leo, no, she did not vote for Trump in 2024. She said, okay, no. But Orange says, wow, in 2016, Trump doubled down on the death penalty for the exonerated 5. Nancy Wall is saying, be honest, like you want us to be about them, but you're screaming by yourself. Aquarius says, so she went to a racist Black History Month celebration. Doesn't make sense. But you said you went to the ceremony because you thought it was important to be in the room.
Well, you know, I'm trying to see if they have an agenda, because I'm somebody that will give them an agenda for the Black community. We have to be there. You know, I know that people naturally think, oh no, I'm not dealing with them. See, I just don't feel that way. I feel like we got to lean in and give them our agendas. And every president across history, you know, if you look at the Butler, if you look at all these movies, there's people that have been in the president's ear despite what we were going through to change our direction. So it's definitely there. You know, I understand how people feel, but you know,
Dr. Marilyn,
it's just a hard thing.
Dr. Marilyn is asking, are Black Republicans making headway being in these rooms, and what are they doing with said information?
No, you know, I was really upset at the Black History Month celebration because there was absolutely no agenda. I mean, what
did they serve you guys to eat?
The food was pretty good. I have, you know, it's funny that I wish I have a
no
video
Big Macs.
of the food.
It wasn't McDonald's.
No. It was
McDonald's.
we had crab cakes. It was green tomatoes. It was a really good menu. It was, you know, drinks. It was good, but that was all that it was there. There was no substance. He put up these people that are coming. Oh, this guy is not racist. All he wanted was for them to say it was not racist. They might as well not have had a Black History Month celebration. But that's, again, this is why I am in the room to see. So nobody can come out and say, well, no, Trump has a great agenda for the Black community. No, he does not. And again, this is something that because I'm here, I can push an agenda. Now, it might not go through because of these people, but I'm going to continue to try. I don't feel like we should sit out 4 years with the president when Republican comes in office. I don't believe that we should sit 4 years out on a president. I just don't believe that. We're going to wait. Well, we'll wait our turn until the Democrats get in there. I don't believe that, you know, and I believe that people fought in this country for us to have freedom of choice. And I hate when we take our own choices away. You know, I'm a Republican because of the principles of Republican. I believe in the marriage and the family, and I believe that we have to carve a space out for ourselves everywhere in the United States.
So you brought up family. We got a story coming out of Florida just in a minute to talk about. But Mike V is asking, what values do the Republicans have that Black folks can benefit from at this current moment? And he also is saying, so you want to try and work with Republicans, but don't see any value in working with Democrats?
Oh, no, I've said that I worked with Reverend Jesse Jackson for 15 years. So that's, you know, so I work on both sides of the aisle. All the Democrats know me, like everybody knows me, and they're like, go ahead, JINEEA, you know, and everybody knows that I'm for our community. That's why I don't get blackballed and everything like that, because they know, even when the Republicans bring me on, they'll be like, JINEEA is a really strong component of her community. And, you know, even when they bring me on to their shows and things of that nature, they know where I'm coming from. And this is about a Black agenda. And so the Republican values, low taxes, small government. Right now we're in a big government form. So not a lot of war, pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and an economic development plan. That's what I believe in. Like I said from the beginning, I don't know if you're just tapping in, but I said from the beginning, that I believe not necessarily in people, but I believe in the party, what it's supposed to mean. Now, if the party is doing it and the Democrats do the same thing, if the party is doing it, do you jump out of the Democratic Party? No, you don't. And the Democratic Party hasn't been serving us correctly either. And so we are in a hell of a situation, and we cannot lean on either side. And I believe that once we balance this field out and say, listen, I got something over here, put something over here or something over here, we're going to end up getting what we need. But we have to balance the floor.
Last question before we move on, because one of my good Republican friends who passed away is Shirley Hussar. I don't know if you know who Shirley Hussar is. She's out of California, but this was before Trump. This is when, like, back in the day when a Republican, had the values that you're talking about. But now we're living in a hostile Republican takeover by MAGA. So do you consider yourself now evolving into a MAGA? Or do you consider yourself a Republican? And talk to us about the difference, if there is one at this point.
Well,
and we only have a little time. We only have a little time with this.
So MAGA is MAGA, right? MAGA is MAGA, and MAGA is something that, when I seen everybody at the White House, all the Black Republicans, and I'm like one of the early Republicans, and so then I kind of seen it, and I was like, man, I'm a cause of some of this right here, but everybody's blind to the rhythm. So I think that I'm in a phase of redefining what that is for me, right? Redefining how we work this, because this is not working right now. It's not working for us. And again, it's not working on either side for us, because, one side is playing us and the other side says, giving us the finger and everything. So no, I don't feel it's MAGA. And I think that I'm in a conundrum right now, because I have to figure out which way to go now that I know that they don't want to have anything to do with an agenda for us, and they're not,
or Black
thinking
people,
about
or people of color too. Let's be clear.
Yeah,
there's no Black people in the cabinet. They don't care about us.
100%. One person, Scott Turner, and he's in housing, and and I met him. And then that's the other thing. You got to meet these people to see what these people are about. Met him at the, the Black History Month event to see where he's at. I'm working with the HUD and stuff like that as well. So it's like, again, I just feel like we can't sit 4 years out because we don't like somebody. I'm a basketball player. So even if you don't like players on your team, you still got to figure out how to work with them and win the game.
All right. So we'll continue this conversation through other stories within the show, but let's jump into our morning poll. So news just broke that the legendary Tina Turner's name, image, and likeness and rights, along with most of her massive music catalog, has been sold to a foreign investment firm. So we're seeing more of our icons. If you think about it, Quincy Jones, so part of his family sold his estate. The likeness of James Brown and Bob Marley. They're being managed by global corporations rather than kept within the family of Black-owned entities. So, Chad, we want you to chime in, and JINEEA, I want to get your thoughts. How do you feel about our cultural legends being sold to the highest global bidder? Are you okay with it for them to secure the bag? Is it A, securing the bag? Is it B, protect the culture? Or is it C, is it just business? So how do you feel about our cultural icons being sold to the highest global bidder? Do you want them to A, secure the bag, B, protect the culture, or C, it's just business? Drop your thoughts in the chat. And then JINEEA, what do you think about this? What do you think about our legends
Wow.
relative
You
level?
know, just being around a lot of music legends and things of that nature, it's really hard, right? So it goes back to where we are in the Black community, where we need money, right? You know, they want to secure the bag. And I'm sure that they also want to protect the culture. And then I'm sure that it's also just business. And so it goes back to the part of, you know, the land, you know, selling land in our families, right? And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I think that we should hold on to it and protect the culture. But you know, when everybody is living for the moment, everybody is living right now, they want that money right now. You know, they want to cash into it right now, because what's it worth if you're dead? What's it worth? You know, it's really hard. And I think that we're in a hard situation. And if we had a plan on how to maximize it for ourselves, we wouldn't have to sell it. You know, so I think that's what we need to focus on, is how we need to move forward in making this work for the family so it stays in the culture. Because now people are taking advantage of it, and you know, they're doing the jingles on TV and all this other stuff, and the music lives on, but we're not getting any of the money. So it's horrible. It's horrifying.
So you're with Lady Leo. She says protect the culture. So you're saying protect the culture. I think another layer to this question is, if a Swedish firm owns Tina Turner, do they understand the significance of her comeback in the 80s, or is she just a product to them? So, you know, just understanding the nuances of her life and her story, you know, do they get that? Do they understand that? Do they understand, you know, her leaving Ike, and you know, just the nuances of Black culture? Does the Swedish firm get that, or do we lose all that value of Tina Turner because she's now just a product to them? What do
We
you think
lose
about
it.
that?
We lose it. And again, it goes back to wills, right? Making sure that we have proper wills in place early. You know, you would think that a lot of people had their will and their situation situated to that point before they left, but people think that they're going to live forever, right? People don't want to talk about when we die, and you know, the living will and all that kind of stuff, because that kind of stuff is important. And no, I don't think the Swedish people, no, they don't understand. How could they understand, right? You know, they might take, you know, get a check, you know, for somebody looking to use it, but are they going to use it in the right way? And it'll probably go to waste. But
Right.
the bag is secured, right? You know, I got the money, and you know, I have no rights to it forevermore.
Right. Yeah. And that generational wealth just disappeared. Well, I mean, I guess it could be there, but maybe that generational passing on of like legacy, right? But maybe the legacy is in the wealth. I don't know. Maybe, you know, but
I mean,
to have a piece of Tina Turner, her catalog, to know who she is, versus having just the dollars, and then you don't even know if that money is going to transfer to spend, depending on the family's spending habits. So
right.
it's
And
a
so
tough
what
call.
do you think about it?
You know, it's a tough call because, you know, I mean, this is how I feel about some people with wealth. You know, you gather up this lifestyle, right? And then you have to have the money to continue to fund it, you know. So it's like, you know, sometimes you got to downsize. You know, you can't keep living how you might have been living when that person was alive, because, you know, things may change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, you know, it depends on a person's situation. They could need the money and they got to sell, but maybe if they hold out a little longer, they could have kept it. So it's a tricky situation, but I'm always about, at the end of the day, protecting the culture.
Right. Right.
Let's protect the culture.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's so hard. Again, when we talk about, you know, property and family and how we sell that, you know, there used to be farmland. No, I done sold that house and I done got the money right on the spot. And it's so important for us to continue the legacy. Like, again, got to go back to Reverend Jackson. Keep hope alive. It's very important.
And so before we get into our first story, like I said, we met you, Greer and I, at our 199th anniversary and enshrinement at Howard University.
Yes.
You were in the room. And everybody knew who you were, and they showed you a lot of love. So
And they know I'm a Republican.
The chat say how you feel. She was in the room, and people were showing her love. But what were some of your takeaways, real quick? Just being a part of 199-year legacy. You had Dr. Chavis giving the state of Black press.
Right.
You had those Howard University students continuing the work of the Black press and making sure that these things are documented and archived. Black newspapers. What was your takeaway from last week?
I think that it's a wonderful time. When we sit there, the part that gets me about the Black press is that these second and third generation publishers are keeping the torch from their families and really pushing the message of the Black community and the Black agenda, right? And just the fact for me, what I loved always writing for the Black press is that Frederick Douglass and the Freedom Papers used to be a part of this. And then the fact that they're archiving at Howard University, I think that is a wonderful initiative. And then the enshrinement of Burnell, the young gentleman Burnell who had passed away. I was with him I think that his last Black press, we had a ball. We were out in the streets at the Congressional Black Caucus. And when he passed away, it was so horrifying because I was just with him. But the fact that they're enshrining him and the fact that they remember and they're keeping the papers and they're keeping the Black agenda alive. And I think this goes back to what we're saying about the music is these publishers understand that this is for the culture. And so always my takeaway is that even though that they don't make as much money as they could be making going digital and things of that nature, they understand that the legacy of the Black press is very important. And so going into this is the 199th year, but going in the 200th year, I think it's amazing and out of this world.
I mean, I like how you tied that to our morning poll because that's a part of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Tina Turner or a Black-owned newspaper, when you sell these things, it takes away from what the contributions of these organizations did in the culture, whether it folds or whether you sell it. That was a great tie-in. Let's jump into our headlines. Of course, the biggest story, which we started with our videos, is ICE agents being headed to airports as TSA shortages drive long lines. And we know that, this is all because Republicans want to fund ICE and Democrats are holding the line. And Donald Trump is using this as a tactic. And what's come out over the weekend is that this was part of Project 2025. There was a clause in them saying that they wanted to privatize TSA. And so, when you look at it from that perspective, it was like, this is what they wanted anyway. So was this a setup? But what are your thoughts of ICE going into our airports, knowing that they have already murdered at least 3 American citizens on the streets? We don't know how many people have lost their lives in these detention centers, or, names that we don't know about of undocumented people that they probably allegedly have assaulted, have died in their custody. What are your thoughts about ICE in this administration sending into the airports?
I think it's crazy. And let me just say that ICE is already funded, right? So ICE already has their money. What the Dems are holding out for is, trying to slow down the process of what's going on because they've already been funded. So they're not stopping ICE from being funded. I just wanted to make
they want more money.
Right. Okay.
They want more funding.
Yes, and I don't think that they need it because these masked men that Donald Trump has brought back from I don't know that have shell shock, and I'm scared because in the airports, right? We already have enough security and all that stuff, and so now we have to worry about vigilante people coming into the airports and pulling people over and people that look suspicious. And I hope that that's not what they're going there for, but, I think that, the Dems need to come up with another scenario because this whole shutout has now given Trump the opportunity to make a move like this. And so I think that we've got to play chess in situations like this, to where I like that the fact that they're trying to hold out for the midterm elections, but you got to realize these people are still making moves. And so now that they're going into the airports, which the airports are having a horrible time. And I was there after I went, I just went to Chicago for Reverend Jackson. So I just missed, the crazy lines, but the lines were starting. And so now you have these TSA agents who are not getting paid or not making money. Somebody has to do something about that. So I think that we need to come up with a plan that allows these TSAs to get their money, and the Dems are saying that they want, to fund TSA, and the Republicans are trying to hold the line and just being like, and I think that absolute power, and this is why I think that we need a balance of power, because I think that either side with full power starts to act crazy. And this is why, I don't believe that the Senate and the Congress should be held up by just Republicans, because they are showing that they just don't know how to act, and they're not going to act in the right way for the people. And
I think that's huge for you as a Republican to acknowledge that, because
I'm real.
That is true. But what I really thought about too is that because Homeland Security is the hub for ICE and TSA, why couldn't they take some of that money from ICE and reallocate it to pay TSA workers? Homeland Security could do that. Because it's all under the same umbrella. So why can't you reallocate those ICE funds that, to your point, they have? They want the government, Congress, to give them more money, but there is funding there within the Homeland Security entire budget for them to be able to reallocate funds to pay TSA workers. And I think that Democrats miss the mark when they don't articulate that to the American people, that Homeland Security has the funding to pay TSA.
And
they can reallocate, but they just are not doing it.
And see, and this is the type of stuff that we have to, this is the type of agendas that we have to push, because again, I'm not, that's something great to put in somebody's head to say, hey, look, since you guys are all looking to work together, and since you guys are all looking to be on the same page, because I'm a little scared when we're at war with Iran. They're coming up with all kinds of different ways to get under the American skin. They haven't got here on American soil, thank God, but that they're thinking about how to get over here and to affect us like that. So something needs to happen. And I like that approach to it as well.
Right. Or you can go to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. He spent $9 million on crab legs. Take some of his budget and send it over there to TSA. They got the money to do it without asking Congress for any more money. It's called reallocation. And so that's where I feel like the Democrats missed the mark. And not that just we're holding the line. If I was Hakeem Jeffries, it's not that we're just holding the line, but Homeland Security can fix this problem internally right now by reallocation of funds. Yeah, that's what's a talking point that I feel like Democrats can use. So when Republicans say it's their fault, they're holding us. No, y'all got the money already.
Right.
You got
it. The problem right here is that we're playing midterm election ball, right? And I think that this is where the politics break with me, because this is all about the midterm elections. Everybody is playing toward the midterm elections, and they're not thinking about the American people. The Republicans are saying, look, we are not going to budge no matter what, because we want it to look like the Democrats don't care about the American people, and they're going to let the lines at TSA and all that go out the doors and everything like that. And then the Dems are saying, well, we're going to make it look like the Republicans are holding up all these people because they won't have these additional things, because, you know, they want them to take off their mask. And you know what? Those things are reasonable about the ICE agents, the stuff that they're asking for them to do. I think maybe they can modify a couple things, but those things are reasonable. But they're playing midterm election ball right here. And that is really the problem, because Trump going over to Iran and Hegseth, trying to get his wings going and stuff like that, and messing everything up, got the gas all up high. So by the time of the midterm election, they'll bring it down low and hope the American people will buy into that. They know that we have short-term memory, and we've got to get more involved in everything that's going on, so they can't do these silly things and just affect our lives, because they're forgetting that our lives are the ones that are being interrupted.
Right. We have news that's happening right now. The Supreme Court takes up a dispute over mail-in ballots. So you were just talking about midterms, and we know that, you know, over the past 8 years, it's been a real push for absentee voting to happen, mail-in ballots. And so now the Supreme Court is taking up that issue, and we should be preparing and paying attention to that as the midterms approach. Let's talk about another trending story. I think it was last week we just remembered the murder of Breonna Taylor. And so now the Department of Justice has moved to drop the remaining charges in Breonna Taylor's case. Former officers Joshua James and Kyle Meany were accused of falsifying the search warrant tied to the 2020 raid that led to Breonna Taylor's murder. And we know that there was a big push for no-knock warrants. We saw that the Department of Justice is trying to roll that back as well. And so it's like all of the work that advocacy groups, Black advocacy groups and movement work has done, not just to protest, but to change policy. This Trump administration continues to slap us in the face as they roll back, you know, ways to combat police sanctioned violence against people of color. And so this is just more bad news on top of more bad news from this Trump Klan administration.
It's horrifying, you know, and it, you know, this is the part that really hurts, because, you know, these people don't understand what we go through as a community. You know, here this young lady in her house, you know, people come busting through her door and actually kill her, and then fight to say, oh no, we didn't have anything to do with that, right? You know, and shout out to Tamika Mallory and my son, the general, that have done so much work in this regard. You know, yeah, and they have done, you know, so much work on this platform for her, and it's sad, and I'm hoping that we can push to reopen it. You know, Ben Crump, somebody that are pushing to reopen this. But again, this is the issue that we go through, you know, every day, you know, all the time, when we have to continue to push and make these rights right for us in America.
Right, 100%. And, you know, it's just like, what do you do under an administration that's racist, that doesn't care? Do you just sit back? And, you know, a lot of ways that we were trying to deal with this as Black folks is we was traveling. And now we have the anxiety to think that ICE is going to be in the airports. And that just puts on a whole nother layer, because you can best believe, you know, within a few months, they'll be checking our social medias as we go through the gates, saying, you know, do you support? Do you have an allegiance? I mean, it's just the anxiety that you wake up with. The anxiety. Why are you? The anxiety that these white folks is giving me is just out of control. It's out of control.
Well, you know, that was, you know, the going through your social media and say, do you support? We pulling you over to the side is crazy. But
it's crazy.
You know, but you know, who's to say that that can't happen?
And you know, somebody posted. I'm not a Handmaid's Tale watcher, but somebody posted yesterday, like this was in the Handmaid's Tales, where you know the government was in the airport or the bus station, and they were asking questions before you could go anywhere. And so, I mean, it's just
we are in a police state in United States at this point, you know, and I think that, you know, it's important to tell everybody who does not have their passport, get it now before you can't get it. Because if you ever go to other countries and realize that a lot of those people cannot leave that country, they can't leave because the laws around, you know, you need a sponsor from this country, you can't get a visa and things like that. We're moving into that direction. So I employ everybody to go get your passport, renew it, make sure you're up to date, make sure all of your identification is on point, because there's going to be issues coming forward, and we know it. I mean, right. They may only last another 2 years. You know, if you all are successful in getting a Democrat in, but then you have to get a good candidate, right? You know, right. You have to get a good candidate that's going to appeal to all the American people. But, you know, this Trump third term piece, I doubt that it's going to happen. But then, you know, Obama will step up, and that'll be a great, I would actually love to see that, you know, a Trump Obama election piece, and how the people would pan out for that one.
Well, let's head to Florida. They have a few headlines that we want to touch on. Number one, Florida has passed a bill allowing Ron DeSantis to fire any local officials who support DEI efforts, and also a Florida bill that sought to ban marriages between first cousins. It failed to pass in the Senate. So they want you to marry your first cousin. So the proposal would have prohibited individuals from marrying anyone descended from their grandparents, effectively banning first cousin marriages. Now they're saying the issue may return for another vote, as first cousin marriages remain legal in several states while banned in most others. Now, what?
I didn't get that. I didn't get, you know, I missed the memo when it was legal the first time, right? You know, so the whole bandit. Now, Florida is going a little crazy. And now you know that there's a governor election with the black governor in Florida, Byron Donalds, that's running in Florida, black man. And so
we know who he is. We're familiar.
Oh, okay. Because you know, again, I went and I G-checked him. See, this is why this stuff is important. I went and I G-checked him. Let me see who you are. Let me see what you're talking about. Now, he didn't fell for it. You know, he didn't fell for the whole piece. He's from Brooklyn, had a couple issues in New York, and then switched up his whole mantra, married the white woman, and moved to Florida and plays the game now. You know, he's playing the game, but I don't want to call him what I'm gonna call him, but he's one of them. But you know, you know, so I wonder what the future of Florida is going to be like, because Ron DeSantis' wife is trying to run as well. So I'm wondering, you know, like Florida is the place for New Yorkers to flock, you know, from New York and everything that's going on in New York. And so everybody is loving, you know, what is happening in New York. And basically they're just saying no. But see, the DEI, I go back and forth with the DEI, because we did not benefit. Now, DEI to me is another form of affirmative action. When everybody hears
That's all
it,
it is.
yeah, when everybody hears it, they think affirmative action. Now they're going to have to do something about it because they're kicking us out of everything in the name of DEI, but we didn't even benefit from the DEI. You know, the white
Well, I
woman
mean, I think that's
benefited the most.
debatable. But I think that's debatable. I think that there are people that could say that DEI, which, like you say, is another term for affirmative action. I will agree with that, that it does benefit. And there was, you know, motion towards even a more better benefit of it. And so those thresholds are there, I think, just to remind them that people are watching and that there does have to be a certain level of, you know, diversity within your corporations.
Right.
I think that's essential. I want to jump into the chat. Orange G says, once again, that is Trump's handpicked DOJ, and you are still trying to get a seat at the table with Republicans and MAGA. Maya Angelou said it best: when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Dr. Marilyn is saying, what about those who cannot afford a passport? Those who have a fixed income or unable to find their birth certificate. This is unfair to them.
And so, and that's what we have to work on, right? So that's what we have to work on, is helping people get their birth certificates, making sure that these people get the money. And so those are some of the things that I'm telling the Republicans, like, oh, okay, since you say that this is all about immigration, and since you say this is all about citizens of the United States, then you're going to pay for the people to get their passports, right? You're going to pay for people to get their birth certificates and help them track down the information that they need, right? You know, because again, I don't feel like there's too much money in America for us just to say that we're going to deal on one side of America. You know, again, I got the Trump DEI. I think it's horrifying. And I've seen firsthand how these people have gone from, oh, acting like they're down with the Black community to, oh, no, we don't have to do anything for the Black community. Good luck to you. And everybody has merit. And that's not true. So you know, so I'm with you there. I'm 100% with you. But when they did the numbers on the DEI, the people that were benefiting were the white women. We had like 4% benefit. So if you want to call that benefit, I'll stick with it. But we weren't the ones at the forefront of it. So we've got to figure something else out. And what was the gentleman's name? I want him to come up with an agenda on what we should do so we can put that on the table. Do you understand?
Okay, he's gonna put it in the chat. Okay, don't get RG started. He's gonna put it in the chat.
Please,
I'm seeing a lot of new names in the chat. So welcome to Black Press Morning Show. This is where we uplift the Black experience, the culture, and the headlines that are important to us. So welcome, come on in, tell a friend, like and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. And follow us on all social media platforms at Black Press USA. Let's go to New Jersey, which is up in your area, where parents at Belleville, New Jersey, are in an uproar after 11th graders received an invitation through Google Classroom to earn community service hours by volunteering at an ICE detention center facility. Now, the school district has since called it a mistake by a single employee and condemned the post, but families are asking, how does an invite to a federal detention center even make it into the high school students' dashboard? So for many students in that district, ICE isn't just a news headline. It's a source of real life anxiety for their families or neighbors. So the question is this service or intimidation? And how did this even happen, that students are being asked to volunteer to graduate? You get your service hours to graduate at an ICE detention center.
Crazy. And, you know, again, this whole process, what I've realized is that, you know, this Trump derangement syndrome, whatever you want to call it, on both sides, you know, the people that have it, the people that are fighting against it, they have just gone too far. You know, now you're involving the kids, you know, you're trying to Charlie Kirk the kids, if you will, you know, and get the kids involved. and stuff like that, and the discrimination tactics against, you know, young kids that are coming in, you know, immigrant, you know, so what do the other kids feel like? What if I'm, you know, a first generation American and, you know, my family is being threatened? Oh, you know, but, you know, Bobby over here, he got the letter. And so Bobby's like, oh, I'm going, you know, it's horrifying. You know, I grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which was a very diverse community. So I was there when I grew up. I remember when the first Japanese American came to the school, and it was horrifying for that person. I remember when the first person from Spain came to our class. I remember a girl from Canada, you know, and so all these people came in, and you know what, we flocked together. Like, I understood, I became their friend, because I was like, oh, they about to get it, they about to get teased, they about to get tore up, and I became their friend. So I can only imagine what the kids are going through today, you know, in this, and it's wrong, you know, it's just definitely wrong.
Right. Orange G did respond. He said, I don't agree with anything your guest says, but at least she can articulate her position for being a Republican in 2026. And then he says, I hope she isn't a double agent for MAGA. No. Let me just say this, though. You have to know that the Jasmine Crockett's, the Hakeem Jeffries, the Al Greens, the LaMonica McIvers, the Ayanna Presleys, you have to know that they're talking to some Republicans, and that they do have a few Republican allies quietly on Capitol Hill. And so if you can't talk or have a conversation with somebody across the aisle, then you do your constituents a disservice. And technically, we do ourselves a disservice if we can't have a conversation. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about MAGA folks, okay? We really don't have anything. You can't, you know, I mean, even though there's a story about a Black man, and somebody in the chat knows who I'm talking to, that, you know, had conversations with the Klan back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to know how to have a conversation with somebody to move the needle forward. Now, I'm not saying this for this Trump administration, but I'm just saying that we have to be willing to have conversations with people who you can have a conversation with. Now, I'm not saying that that's everybody on the other side, but I find it refreshing to be able to have a conversation with you. And you know, I'm totally against you being a Republican. I don't see how you can do it. Okay. I just don't. But at the same time, we are having conversations to see that you do not agree with this administration, and you're trying to a different approach. You're saying that I'm going to be at the table if I get the invite, because if I don't, who else is going to go? You know, God bless you for that.
Thank you. And I wish that our community
I don't have the capacity for it.
No, and some of us don't. But I just wish our community would understand that there's some of us on the other side of the lines that are fighting for us, and we get so much heat and so much hate towards us, and it's like somebody has got to be here. Now, again, do you want the square Black man that has nothing to do, that hates our community, to be telling Trump, oh, this is what the community needs? And that's what's essentially happening at this point, right? You know, and I'm sad that I didn't get closer to the community to be that one in his ear, like, listen. Now, I would have probably got fired, right? You know, I seen Omarosa, she was at Reverend Jackson's funeral, and we just kind of gave each other the look. Mm-hmm. And you know, and nobody was stoning her. Okay, everybody was giving her love, taking pictures with her. She was there quietly. She was in the cut. She happened to be like 2 seats ahead of me, and we just kind of cut our eyes at each other because we know, you know, one another and where we stand.
And everybody looking at y'all in the funeral,
they look there, and we sitting right in the middle. Hello, no, but everybody is not. First of all, there's a lot more Republican-minded people than they say, because nobody wants to be stoned by the community. But I just feel like our rights in this country about whether we're Republican or whether we Democrat, we don't have to listen to them. We can create our own little faction of this party that hurts them when they do stuff like this. But when we're so against it, we're so against it, we just let them do whatever they want. No, I refuse. For them, they got to hear a real voice.
Okay, so we got a couple more chats. Orange, you can jump back in. We wouldn't need DEI or affirmative action if companies really base their hiring practices based on merit, not who you know.
Sure.
I mean, that's true. That's why we needed DEI and affirmative action, because it wasn't happening. Dr. Marilyn says, so where is the PTA, school board committee, the principal, school counselors? Who said this was a good idea? They're saying it was a mistake. Okay, that's what they're saying. Lady Leo says, I agree with you, DEI and affirmative action, RNG. And Dr. Marilyn also says, well said, Neil. Back in the day, Democrats and Republicans did work together civilly. You know, George Bush loves Michelle Obama. Yes. And I'm telling you right now that our favorite Black Congress members, from Maxine Waters to the Jasmine Crockett's to the Ayanna Presley's, even AOC, they all have Republican allies. That's how you get bills passed. That's
you have
how
to.
You have to work across the aisle. And you could best believe some of those Republicans are quietly letting them know, I don't agree with him. And that's how you those are the ones that you continue to build relationships with, because those are the votes you know that you could flip. You have a big board. The Congress members, they have a big board when they have their bills in their office, and their staffers are saying, this Republican, this is a maybe, this is a yes. This is how it works. And if we really want to change our country, this is what we have to do. Now, MAGA, you might need to leave them where they're at. Okay, leave them where they're at.
But they're gonna fall off. You know.
Yeah, they are, and they're quitting too. They're quitting too. You know, there's a high percentage of Republican members of Congress that are quitting because they don't have the balls to stand up to Donald Trump, so they would rather leave. And they've already parlayed themselves into a private sector job. This is just the reality of how it works. They don't want to, they're tired of MAGA. They don't want to do it. They don't want to deal with their constituents, and they don't like what's happening. So they're just going to quit, and they're going to go off. They've already made their money in the stock market, and they're just going to go off. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. She went from trailer trash to millionaire.
Well,
and walked away.
What's happening.
And walked away.
And that's what we've got to realize, what's happening in this political spectrum. It's a money game. And so you see how MAGA is a fraction of the Republican Party. We need to have a fraction in everything, right? You know, we don't need to be like, okay, because it's a money game. There's $1 billion, few $1 billion that go through these elections. Kamala Harris had herself $1 billion to use in 90 days. Okay? Because that is the political game. And that's the part that we have to understand. And more of us. This is why I was saying that I'm so happy that Luke is getting involved in the process, because he's getting involved in this money game. Somebody else, Scarface was another one. I had a conversation with him. And again, I don't care. You know, I'm not telling people, oh, well, you should be a Republican and you should. I'm not saying that. But Scarface, he and I had a conversation. And I was like, look, this is a money game. And then he became Brad Jordan and started running for office in Texas. You understand? And so we are leveling up the game, and we need more people on both sides of the field to fight our position in America, and they will not be able to do certain stuff. I can't stand that we play the victim all the time. Instead, we've got power in this country. We've got to use it. Everybody has to get off the bench. Everybody is not a Democrat in thought and mind. We're not monolithic. And so everybody has to get off the bench, and we all have to play our part. And when we talk about for the culture, again, goes right back to where we're at. Black press, the music, the politics, for the culture, not for a party.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, I think that they're, especially with Black men, just having conversations with them, they don't align. Orange G is one of them. He don't align with a Democrat or a Republican. And it's like, where do you find your space in this political game? And you're talking about it's a money game, but I think that we really have to have these real serious conversations of where Black men, how they feel and where they fit in, because that's why you see a lot of Black men, going to a Trump, because they like the capitalism and they want the money, they want the power. First you get the money, then you get the power, key to life. Yeah, I was listening to my Biggie this weekend. But this is where we're at, and so we have to, when we find ourselves in this position of we're not too happy with the Democrats, but we sure ain't hell gonna be no MAGA. Where as Black people do we fit in and we build our political power? Is that a third party?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But where is that? And we have to figure this out. And then there's this conversation, of Black women rising up and Black men feeling left out. Like, you can't endorse a Black man if a Black woman is running, because it's the Black woman's time. And so all of these conversations are being had, and it's like everybody has to feel like they belong so they can feel empowered to participate.
Go
I'm sorry.
I just want to say, we at times have to make the candidate. We have to create the candidate. We have to create the atmosphere that works for us. The only thing, and I did a lot of research on all of this, the only thing that's not going to work in our favor is that we are only 14% of the population. And so
less than that, I think. Isn't it less than that?
Yeah, probably. It probably went down too, right? And so because of that, our numbers are low. So when we talk about having a political party, right, and we have in our own space, we still need other people. So I look at somebody like Orrin that says we have to leverage our vote and we have to make it count on either side. We've got to make it work for us.
100%.
To leverage our vote.
Well, let's talk about something that we like to disagree about, and that is March Madness, because depending on whose team you're rooting for, we could be on opposite sides. But things really got into full swing this weekend, and for the first time in tournament history, 0 mid-majors advanced to the second round. Now, the Power Four and the Big East stars dominated, setting up some massive high seed matchups. So let's start with South Carolina's 69-point statement. The number 1 overall seed Gamecocks delivered a historic 103-34 blowout of Southern. Freshman Joyce Edwards lived up to the hype with 27 points and 8 rebounds. Now, I was happy to see a HBCU in the tournament, but I just feel so bad because they got their asses kicked. Ooh.
Well, what needs to happen is that more, now that the NIL, the name, image, and likeness is happening. I wish that was happening when I was a youngin', but now that is available, we need to now support these colleges and these places that we can get real players. And I'm not saying the players are not real, but better players to these universities so we can compete on this level, because now we know what it takes. We're getting there, and now we just need to add that accent, that 7'9". There's a 7'9" guy out there right now, but we need to add that accent of these bigger players so that we can continue to play on that level. So we need to stop steering our kids, but it's going to be hard because they're getting big money at these big universities. But we need to start steering our kids to the HBCUs. I wrote about that with the Black Press. So I'm happy that it's happening to some degree, but we just have to work on that a little harder. Now, Shaq and Deion Sanders, they tried that with their kids and stuff. And we have to make sure that these Black schools have the money that they need as well to to get there, you know, and to be able to play there on that level, and so they don't feel like they're, you know, they're playing under, you know, under budgeted, you know, because that's what happens at the Black schools. So we have to just make sure that's happening. I'm gonna just turn off my camera real quick. I just have to plug in real quick. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. And while you're plugging in, let's head over to USC's overtime survival. So the number 9 seed Trojans fought through a gritty battle to beat Clemson 71-67. Now, freshman Jazzy Davison, she went off. I don't know if you guys saw it, but she was the hero, dropping 31 points, the most ever by a USC freshman in a tournament debut. And we saw that our girl Juju Watkins was right there cheering on. And it was just unbelievable how Jazzy Davison went off for the win. In overtime, she hit that shot. So that was also an excellent time to watch. So USC advances, and then LSU, the century mark. The squad continues to score at a record-shattering pace, putting up 115 points against Jacksonville. And so tonight, you guys, you definitely have to tune in because it's the showdown between USC versus South Carolina. And so that'll be a game to watch. Everybody wants to see if Jazzy Davison is going to show up like she did over the weekend. And of course, Dawn Staley will be there with her Gamecocks. So that game comes on this evening. So make sure you tune in. And then tomorrow, we'll talk about what the fellers are doing with March Madness. If you're watching March Madness, drop a basketball in the chat and let us know who you are rooting for. And final story of the day before we get into our Black Facts, we want to uplift HBCU Miles College, who has made history with a victory at the National Cheerleading Competition. Now, the Golden Bears cheer team captured both the overall grand champion title and the college co-ed game time championship at the CCA Christian Cheer Nationals and Collegiate Championship, which was held in North Carolina. So with this win, y'all, Miles College became the first HBCU to earn both titles at the competition. So HBCUs continue to advance, and diversity, equity, inclusion ain't got nothing to do with that. It's just called Black excellence. And before we get out of here, let's jump into our Black Facts. So it's Women's History Month. We're rounding it out. So we definitely want to celebrate the birthday of Chaka Khan, the legendary queen of funk. Singer songwriter, was born in Chicago, Illinois on this day, and she's known for hits like I'm Every Woman and her work with the band Rufus. She's earned 10 Grammy Awards and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So we salute on Women's Month. We give a special shout out to Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. What's your favorite Chaka Khan song? Drop it in the chat. And last but not least, I did this one for JINEEA because she's so involved in hip hop and with our culture. Today, in 1994, Above the Rim premiered. Everybody remember that? You might not remember the movie, but you have to remember the soundtrack. The soundtrack was a classic when soundtracks were tracking, okay? So Above the Rim was released in theaters. It was directed by Jeff Pollock. It starred DeJuan Martin, Leon Robinson, Marlon Wayans, and of course, the unforgettable Tupac Shakur in his notable role as Birdie. Now, I don't know about the movie, but the soundtrack was like one for 1994. And so that was that. So in the chat, we see we have from GKRE, I Feel For You. But he said, I also love Diamonds and Pearls. So for me, Chaka Khan, Jamaica Funk. Okay, that was one for me. I definitely want to thank you for tuning in. Want to say a shout out to all of our new viewers that were in the chat. We'll be back. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We want to thank our guest, of course, for joining in and, you know, broadening the conversation. JINEEA Butler. She's affiliated with Black Press. She's a columnist with Black Press. And she's a Republican. But, you know, we had a conversation. The chat was chatting with her, letting them know how she felt. And it's good for us to expand our conversations. We'll be back tomorrow with Mike Davis. There's a lot happening here in California, especially with the governor's race. So we're going to talk about election, the midterms this year, what's at stake, and a lot more headlines. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest in Black news, you know what to do. Head over to blackpressusa.com. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to get JINEEA back. She'll be back sooner probably than later. And I'll be back tomorrow with more news, views, and opinions right here on the Black Press Morning Show. Peace.